Come on and cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over
Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to this short but very well-meaning streaming every morning. Not every morning, every one and then in the morning. I'm gonna start to try even streaming in late night shows, maybe late night, not shows, but you know what we do here. Or maybe even afternoons. I'm trying and seeing how I feel. You know, the mood to stream should be a good mood, you know, no after work, tired. But I'm trying to arrive at home after work, not tired and very well rested. So let's see how it works. In the coming days, of course, not today. Maybe one day I can do a short stream in the morning, a short stream in the afternoon, and a short stream late night. That would be great. 45 minutes per emission, maybe? Okay, enough about that. Welcome. Today I have a short read guess about what? Let's see. Music therapy. What is music therapy? That's the question. And we have according to the web, 3-minute read by Dean Olsher. My undergraduate thesis was about music therapy with children for reducing violent behavior in kindergarten. So that was very fun with the orchestra. You know, xylophones, metal phones. I don't know in English the name of the vibraphones. Okay, today New York City therapist Dean Olsher helps us learn what music therapy really is. Dean also shares his own practice and perspective to help us better understand how and why music therapy can be beneficial as either a supplement to other forms of therapy or on its own. People ask me regularly, how does music therapy work? I used to think they were asking about the psychological mechanism that make music therapeutic. That's a long conversation and very interesting. Because we have biological effects of sound and music in the body and psychological effects. We have more universal and more particular aspects of our identity or our musical and sound identity, and that's made by the direct or biological effects plus the particular personal story, musical and sound story, and that's the result of our susceptibility for some sounds or silence. Some people are comfort with silence, other people no. Okay, let's continue with the article. I'm sorry. Instead, what they usually want to know is how a session unfolds. What happens in the room? That conversation is not as long, but the answer is still complicated. Yeah, my quick answer is we have two general types of music therapy sessions. We have the more expressive one and then we have the more receptive one. You know, when the first one is when we play instruments, and the second one is when we listen to music. Music therapy, I'm back to the article. Music therapy sessions can be for individuals or groups. They happen in therapist offices, schools, hospitals, and in any number of other locales. There may be lots of talking involved, or none at all. Yes, we can use music is mainly non-verbal. So, the more non-verbal is your session of music therapy, the better for me. The answer becomes more complicated because really we are talking about more than one single discipline. Agree? It's more of a jamboree of approaches under a big tent called music therapy. And what happens under that tent may not even be what we would typically think of a psychotherapy. For example, neurologic music therapy is stunningly good at making it possible for people with Parkinson's disease to walk. Wow, that's new for me. That's amazing. I once heard a story of a patient that, because Parkinson's is a progressive, an Alzheimer patient. You know, the Alzheimer patient is the patient that progressively start to lose memories of things, even simple things like blinking. So this person forgot to blink and stayed with the eyes closed for weeks. And the wife came to visit, and the music therapist asked the wife, "What's the theme or music theme you most love as a couple?" Of course. and she told the music therapist. They played that song, and immediately he opened his eyes. Let's continue. So, yeah, it has a great effects when well used. And here's another complication. Even in the area of the tent designated for psychotherapy, there is a tremendous amount of variety. In 1999, the World Congress of Music Therapy recognized 5 international models of practice. 4 of them are well established in the United States. Here's a taste of what they are all about. When I made my thesis in music therapy for undergraduate psychological title, it was more about nonverbal for children and based in a theory of Rolando Benenson, an Argentinian theoretician of music therapy, and he's one of the big ones. I don't know if he's one of these 5 big models, but I guess so. Let's see. Behavioral music therapy, the modern profession of music therapy, was born in the years after World War II. A time when behavioral psychology was on the rise. In psychiatric hospitals, Clinicians noticed how music calmed the nervous systems of people who had been traumatized. In this behaviorist model, which still persists as the default mode of music therapy in the minds of many Americans, music is used to lessen undesired behaviors, promote desired behaviors, and so on. Yes, like I made with aggressive behavior in children. Then, the 1970s brought a second wave of approaches. You could think of it as a humanistic backlash. Yeah, like in general psychology as well. At the same time, Paul Northrop and Clive Robbins, working in What happened with my music? I'm sorry. What a shame. I'm gonna choose another one. Please bear with me. Music therapy? Oh, I know. This one. Okay, where we should continue from. Paul Northrop and Clive Robbins, working in special education schools, pioneered a music-centered branch of the human potential movement. Their approach has evolved to emphasize live music created together by clients and therapists, with the goal of establishing a connection with the music child, or the natural relation between a human and music. No, that's the focus of music therapy, to work our relationship with sound and music. The more we explore that relation, the more interesting things start to happen in regards to health and mental health. The instinctive human response to music in all of us. Exactly. Northrop Robbins is often associated with individual or group therapy for autistic children, but its uses are broader. Analytic music therapy is aligned with classical psychoanalytic theory. Fundamental concepts identified by Freud figure strongly, including, I'm sorry, I don't get the way it's written. Transference, which describes, centers in the concept of transference. Transference is what happens in the relationship between a psychotherapist and the patient, where the hierarchy is clear and therefore is very delicate. Because the power of the therapist, of course. Transference, which describes how a client directs emotions towards others onto the therapist. And counter-transference, what happens with the therapist is exactly in the opposite direction, which is the same dynamic directed from therapist to client. A typical session blends musical improvisation and verbal processing for the purpose of interpreting unconscious motivations. One of the main proponents of AMT in the United States was Benedict Barth Scheibe, active in the New York City area until her death in April 2018. I think Benenson belongs to this approach more related to the unconscious processes of the phenomenon. Guided imagery and music, like hypnosis, is informed by transpersonal psychology. In its original conception, the therapist selects from pre-programmed sequences of classical music recordings to deepen a non-ordinary state of consciousness. Exactly, we make a questionnaire we start with, even with the pregnancy state, no? If you know the kind of sound and musical surroundings you were when your mother was pregnant, that's a very interesting information, of course. And so on, no? Children, instruments in house, what kind of music or not music, noise, sounds, etc. And we are building this kind of history, right? ISO. In Spanish is identity, sound. Oh, I'm sorry. But it has a name, no? This kind of construction we have with a questionnaire of information. We can build a history and a kind of personality in terms of sounds and music only. Jim is heavily influenced by archetypes, which Carl Jung described as the universal myths and patterns that pervade all human cultures. The Jim journey is designed for the client to have a sensory experience that engages not only the mind, but the entire body. Fantastic. The 1999 World Congress recognized a fifth style of music therapy developed by a Brazilian psychiatrist and a musician named Rolando Benezon. What is Brazilian? I thought it was Argentinian. I'm not sure. The last name sounds very Brazilian. But I was in Buenos Aires out of his center foundation. It was closed, but I was there. So, let me check that. Okay, let's see. Buenos Aires, Chile? Buenos Aires, not Brazil. Chile is the office, but born in Buenos Aires in 1939. It's Argentinian, not Brazilian. I'm sorry, I had to fact check the article. Cool. Yes, we about this kind of archetypical work in music therapy. You know, when every instrument has his own particular role in a social interaction in a band, right? The drummer, normally the boy, the child that is the most aggressive is gonna pick the big drum, you know, to make it sound and cover other sounds. So you can assess personalities from the pick and choose of instruments by the participants. And you can use these instruments to integrate other kind of personalities in the dynamic. For example, if one of the participants is not so skilled in instruments or music, you bring him with you and you integrate it and you make it direct the band, you know, with the simple movement of the hand. And he doesn't have the burden of the sound, but he's in a very important position without needing to be a great musician, and so on. I hope that makes sense. I'm fighting with my English here. And the music is too loud, I believe. It's increasing and increasing every minute. Let's continue. Community music therapy. In the past couple of decades, a new concept of group music therapy has taken shape in Scandinavia and in the United Kingdom, and is making inroads in the United States. One driving principle is that marginalized populations, say in prisons or hospitals, should be entitled to have access to making music, community music therapy tends to de-emphasize the hierarchy that separates therapists from clients. Yeah, a psychiatric band. Why not? And you don't know who's the doctor and who's the patient in the band while performing. That's it. Now I'm going to say something that may appear to fly in the face of everything I've written upon up to this point. I believe the particulars of this or that music therapy approach are of secondary importance. What matters most, and this is true for all forms of psychotherapy, is the relationship between therapist and client. It's the factor with the most influence on whether the outcome is positive or negative. Usually, after I've done my best to give people a concise overview of this sprawling collection of information, there's almost always a second question. People generally ask, is music therapy just for musicians? No. My answer is mercifully brief. Absolutely not. Music therapy is for everyone. Indeed, for people with dementia, it may be the only type of psychotherapy possible. Changes. When I was in my early 20s and had been in therapy for about a year, my therapist actually said to me, "Great, we figured out why you are the way you are. You're done." I don't know. I don't remember what I said, but I sure remember how I felt. What I wanted to say was, "Are you kidding me? This is where the hard work starts." That experience had a lot to do with why I became a therapist myself. I was not benefiting from psychotherapy, and I wanted to know why. Eventually, I came to understand that my tendency to be cerebral was standing in the way of growth. Because I'm verbally adept, I managed to talk myself out of getting better. Music is extremely good at cutting through our defenses and putting us in touch with unconscious material. Instead of having a conversation about our emotions, music provides a safe container to experience them directly. We all want to feel better. While there may be value in thinking about the things we want to stop doing, I believe the real possibility for change happens when we engage in imaginative self. There's no better way to create the person you want to be. Thank you, Dean, for sharing your perspective and helping us to learn more of the ins and outs of music therapy and how it can be helpful and healing. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, that's one. Oh, I forgot to activate my camera. I had a camera. Somewhere. Okay, later we try it. Okay, guys, thank you very much for being here. Sorry for the errors and misunderstandings. I hope you have a fantastic Wednesday and rest of the week. See you the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.